We need our ghost operative back in the field. Commander Patricia Hayes' words cut through 5 years of carefully constructed normalcy as Avery Rogers stood in the secure briefing room at Naval Special Warfare Command. For half a decade, she'd been hidden in plain sight, officially listed as a logistics coordinator, unofficially the deadliest female SEAL the Navy had ever trained. Now, with a high-value target threatening American interests and every conventional approach failing, they needed the operative who didn't officially exist. Armed with a customized HK-416 assault rifle and partnered with SEAL Team 6's most elite operators, Avery was about to discover that some missions are so classified, so dangerous, that they can only be trusted to someone the enemy will never see coming. Lieutenant Avery Rogers had spent 5 years perfecting the art of being invisible. At 29, with dark blonde hair she kept in a practical ponytail and gray-green eyes that most people overlooked, she worked as a logistics coordinator at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado. Her days were filled with supply requisitions, equipment manifests, and scheduling meetings, the kind of administrative work that kept special operations running but never made headlines. What her colleagues didn't know was that Avery Rogers was one of only 12 women who had ever successfully completed Navy SEAL training, and the only one whose existence had been classified at the highest levels of government. The decision to hide her had been made by people whose names never appeared in public records. Female SEALs were still a sensitive political topic, and Avery's particular skill set, close quarters combat, precision shooting, and an uncanny to infiltrate hostile territory undetected, made her too valuable to risk in conventional operations where her identity might be compromised. So they'd buried her in bureaucracy, given her a cover identity that was boring enough to avoid scrutiny, and waited for the mission that would require her unique capabilities. That mission had finally arrived. Commander Patricia Hayes, a 25-year Navy veteran who officially ran special operations planning and unofficially managed the Navy's most classified programs, found Avery in her office reviewing equipment requests from SEAL teams deployed overseas. "Rogers, I need you in conference room Alpha in 5 minutes. Bring nothing, tell no one." Avery looked up from her computer screen. After 5 years of administrative routine, she recognized the tone that meant her real job was about to begin. Conference Room Alpha was a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility designed for handling the most classified intelligence. Avery entered to find Commander Hayes waiting with 3 other officers whose faces she recognized, but whose names had never been officially introduced. "Rogers, for the next hour, you don't exist in any administrative sense. What we discuss here is compartmented at levels that require presidential authorization to access." Avery nodded, her pulse quickening for the first time in 5 years. Hayes activated a secure display screen showing satellite imagery of a compound in Eastern Europe. 3 weeks ago, intelligence assets identified Viktor Petrov, an arms dealer who's been supplying advanced weapons to terrorist organizations worldwide. Petrov has acquired a shipment of next-generation surface-to-air missiles that could down civilian aircraft or military transports with perfect accuracy. The screen shifted to show detailed photographs of the weapons in question, sleek portable missile systems that looked nothing like the bulky equipment Avery remembered from her SEAL training. These weapons represent a quantum leap in terrorist capability. A single operator can carry and deploy one of these systems, and they're nearly impossible to detect or jam. If Petrov distributes them to his network, every airport, military base, and government facility in the world becomes a potential target. Hayes paused, then continued. Every conventional approach to neutralizing Petrov has failed. His compound is in a hostile nation that won't permit official military action. His security network has identified and eliminated 3 separate CIA infiltration attempts. Standard SEAL team insertion has been deemed too risky because of the compound's defensive systems. Avery found herself leaning forward. "Ma'am, what kind of defensive systems?" "Motion sensors, thermal imaging, automated defensive weapons, and a security force of 43 professional soldiers, all designed specifically to prevent special operations infiltration." Hayes switched to another display showing the compound's layout, multiple buildings surrounded by walls, watchtowers, and sophisticated surveillance equipment. Rogers, we need someone who can infiltrate this facility, locate and secure the missiles, and eliminate Petrov before he can complete the weapons transfer scheduled for next week. Ma'am, you're talking about a solo infiltration mission into a hardened target defended by overwhelming force. Not solo. You'll be partnered with a 4-man SEAL team from DevGRU, the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, commonly known as SEAL Team 6. But their role will be external support and extraction. The infiltration itself requires someone the enemy won't expect. Hayes pulled out a classified folder and slid it across the table. Rogers, your psychological profile, your training record, and your operational capabilities make you uniquely qualified for this mission. You've been preparing for this assignment for 5 years, even if you didn't know it. Avery opened the folder and found herself looking at operational plans that had clearly been developed over months of careful intelligence gathering. Every detail of the compound had been analyzed, every defensive measure cataloged, every approach vector calculated. Ma'am, what's my insertion method? Commercial flight to a staging area, then overland infiltration using a covered identity as an aid worker. You'll have 48 hours to locate and neutralize the target before the weapons transfer occurs. Hayes activated another screen showing advanced military equipment. You'll be armed with a customized HK-416 assault rifle configured for your specific requirements, along with specialized equipment designed for this mission profile. Avery studied the weapon specifications. The HK-416 was a next-generation assault rifle used by Special Operations Forces worldwide, reliable, accurate, and capable of full automatic fire with minimal recoil. The customized version had been modified with advanced optics, sound suppression, and enhanced ergonomics. Ma'am, when do I deploy? 18 hours. You'll spend the next 12 hours in intensive mission briefing, equipment familiarization, and coordination with your SEAL team support. Then, you disappear from all official records until mission completion. Commander Hayes stood up, her expression serious. Rogers, this mission is voluntary. If you choose not to accept it, you'll return to your logistics position and this conversation never happened. But I need you to understand something. If these weapons reach terrorist networks, thousands of innocent people will die. You're the only operative we have who can prevent that. Avery thought about 5 years of administrative work, 5 years of hiding her true capabilities, 5 years of waiting for the mission that would justify her training. Ma'am, I accept the assignment, Hayes smiled, the first smile Avery had seen from her in 5 years. Outstanding. Rogers, go home, pack light, and report to Briefing Room 7 at 0600 tomorrow. When you walk out of here tonight, Avery Rogers, the logistics coordinator, ceases to exist. Tomorrow morning, you become Operative 77 Alpha, and you have authorization to use whatever force is necessary to complete your mission. The next 12 hours were the most intensive training Avery had experienced since her original SEAL qualification. She was briefed on every aspect of Petrov's operation, his compound's defenses, his personnel, and his planned weapons transfer. She learned that Petrov was not just an arms dealer. He was a former Russian Special Forces operator who had gone rogue, using his military knowledge to build a criminal network that supplied weapons to terrorist organizations worldwide. She studied the compound's layout until she could navigate it blindfolded, memorized the faces and routines of every security guard, and planned infiltration routes that would avoid the most heavily defended areas. Most importantly, she met her SEAL team support. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Kane, the team leader, was a 15-year SEAL veteran with multiple combat deployments who'd been briefed on Avery's real background and capabilities. Rogers, I've reviewed your training records and your psychological evaluations. I've never worked with a female SEAL, but your qualifications speak for themselves. The other team members, Petty Officer First Class Danny Torres, Petty Officer Second Class Jake Morrison, and Petty Officer Second Class Alex Chen, had been told only that they were supporting a classified infiltration specialist whose identity was compartmented. "Ma'am," Torres asked during equipment briefing, "what's your primary weapon system?" Avery lifted the customized HK-416 assault rifle that had been configured specifically for her mission. "This is my primary. Fully automatic capability, advanced optics, sound suppression, and enough ammunition to handle sustained engagement if the mission goes kinetic." Morrison looked surprised. "Ma'am, are you planning for direct action engagement?" "I'm planning for whatever the mission requires. Infiltration is the preferred approach, but if I'm detected, I need to be able to fight my way to the target and complete the mission." Kane nodded approvingly. "That's the right mindset. Rogers, what's your extraction plan if things go sideways?" "Complete the mission first, worry about extraction second. If Petrov transfers those weapons, extraction becomes irrelevant because thousands of people die." The SEAL team exchanged glances. Chen spoke first. "Ma'am, we don't know who you are or where you came from, but you think like a SEAL." Avery almost smiled. "That's the idea." They deployed 18 hours later on a military transport that officially didn't exist, flying to a staging area that wasn't marked on any maps, carrying equipment that had no serial numbers or manufacturing records. Avery's cover identity as Sarah Mitchell, an aid worker with a humanitarian organization, would get her through initial security screenings. Her real mission would begin once she reached the target area. The flight gave her time to review the mission parameters one final time. Her primary objective was to locate and secure the surface-to-air missiles. Her secondary objective was to eliminate Viktor Petrov. Her tertiary objective was to survive long enough to complete the first two objectives. Chief Kane briefed her on the SEAL team's role. "Rogers will establish an overwatch position approximately 2 kilometers from the compound. Will provide communication support, intelligence updates, and extraction assistance if you need it, but the infiltration is entirely your operation." "Understood. What's my communication protocol?" "Check in every 4 hours using coded transmissions. If you miss 2 consecutive check-ins, we initiate emergency extraction procedures." "And if emergency extraction isn't possible?" Kane's expression grew serious. "Then we complete your mission objectives and get those weapons." Avery nodded. This was the kind of mission where success mattered more than survival, where national security took priority over individual safety. They landed at a small airfield that served commercial flights to the region where Petrov's compound was located. Avery, now operating under her Sarah Mitchell cover identity, separated from the SEAL team and continued by commercial transport to her insertion point. For the next 24 hours, she would be completely alone, operating in hostile territory with no backup except a 4-man SEAL team positioned kilometers away. The compound was located in mountainous terrain that provided natural defensive advantages, limited approach routes, clear fields of fire, and multiple escape routes for the defenders. Intelligence reports indicated that Petrov had chosen the location specifically because it was nearly impossible to attack using conventional military tactics. Avery approached the compound using her cover identity, posing as an aid worker conducting preliminary surveys for humanitarian operations in the region. Her credentials would get her past initial security screenings, but once inside the compound, she would need to locate the weapons without arousing suspicion. The first challenge was the compound's outer perimeter, a 12-foot wall topped with razor wire and monitored by cameras and motion sensors. Getting inside would require timing, patience, and the kind of infiltration skills that had been drilled into her during SEAL training. Avery spent 6 hours observing the compound from concealed positions, learning the patterns of the security guards, identifying blind spots in the surveillance system, and planning her approach route. At 0300 hours, during the security shift change when guards were least alert, she made her move. Using specialized climbing equipment, she scaled the compound wall at a point where tree shadows blocked the cameras. Her movement was silent, controlled, professional, the kind of infiltration that took years of training to execute perfectly. Once inside the compound, Avery activated her communication system for a brief check-in with the SEAL team. "Overwatch, this is 7-7 Alpha. I'm inside the perimeter, proceeding to Phase 2. Chief Kane's voice came back immediately. Copy 77 Alpha. You're clear for Phase 2. Intelligence updates indicate normal security patterns, no unusual activity. Phase 2 involved locating the weapons storage facility within the compound. Intelligence had identified 3 possible locations, but Avery would need to search systematically without alerting the security force. The compound consisted of 8 buildings: residential quarters, administrative offices, weapons storage, vehicle maintenance, and Petrov's personal headquarters. Avery moved between buildings using shadows and cover, avoiding guard patrols and surveillance equipment. The first potential weapons location was a reinforced concrete building near the compound's center. Avery approached carefully, using night vision equipment to identify entry points and security measures. The building was locked with electronic security systems, but Avery had been trained in advanced lockpicking and electronic bypassing. Within 4 minutes, she had defeated the security system and gained entry. Inside, she found conventional weapons: assault rifles, pistols, ammunition, and explosives. Dangerous equipment, but not the advanced surface-to-air missiles that were her primary objective. The second potential location was an underground facility accessed through a building that appeared to house vehicle maintenance. Avery spent 20 minutes locating and accessing the underground entrance. The underground facility was more heavily secured, with additional electronic locks and what appeared to be motion-activated lighting systems. Getting inside without triggering alarms would require perfect timing and flawless execution. Avery bypassed the security systems using techniques she'd learned during specialized SEAL training, then descended into the underground facility using night vision equipment to avoid activating the lights. What she found there made her blood run cold. The underground facility contained not just the surface-to-air missiles she'd been sent to secure, but also chemical weapons, biological agents, and what appeared to be components for improvised nuclear devices. Viktor Petrov wasn't just an arms dealer. He was supplying weapons of mass destruction to terrorist networks worldwide. Avery activated her communication system for an emergency update. Overwatch, this is 77 Alpha. I've located the primary target, but we have a much bigger problem. Petrov has chemical weapons, biological agents, and nuclear materials. This is now a WMD situation. Chief Kane's response was immediate. 77 Alpha, document everything, then proceed to secondary objective. We need Petrov eliminated before he can transfer any of these materials. Avery spent 15 minutes photographing the weapons cache, documenting the scale of Petrov's operation for intelligence analysis. Then she planted explosive charges designed to destroy the entire facility once she completed her mission. Phase 3 involved locating and eliminating Viktor Petrov himself. Intelligence indicated that Petrov maintained quarters in the compound's main building, a 3-story structure that served as both his residence and operational headquarters. Approaching the main building required crossing the compound's central courtyard, an open area with limited cover that was continuously monitored by security cameras. Avery waited for the optimal moment, then moved across the courtyard using a combination of shadow movement and electronic countermeasures that temporarily disrupted the surveillance cameras. She entered the main building through a first-floor window that intelligence had identified as a security blind spot, then began systematically searching for Petrov. The building's layout matched the intelligence briefings: administrative offices on the first floor, operational planning areas on the second floor, and residential quarters on the third floor. Avery moved through the building using sound suppression techniques, avoiding the guards who patrolled the corridors every 30 minutes. She found Petrov's office on the second floor, a room containing maps, communications equipment, and what appeared to be detailed plans for weapons transfers to terrorist organizations across 3 continents. But Petrov wasn't there. Avery accessed his computer systems, downloaded intelligence about his operations, then continued searching for the target. She found him on the 3rd floor, in a residential suite that had been converted into a command center where he was conducting a video conference with unidentified contacts. Through the partially open door, Avery could hear Petrov discussing weapons transfers that were scheduled to occur within hours, not the next week as intelligence had indicated. The timeline had just accelerated dramatically. Avery keyed her radio for an emergency update. Overwatch 7-7 Alpha. Timeline has changed. Target is conducting immediate weapons transfers. I'm moving to complete secondary objective now. Copy 7-7 Alpha. You're cleared for all necessary action. Avery checked her HK-416 assault rifle, ensured her sound suppression systems were active, and prepared to eliminate Victor Petrov. But as she approached his location, the compound's alarm system suddenly activated. Someone had discovered her infiltration. Emergency lighting flooded the compound as armed guards began systematic searches of all buildings. Within minutes, Avery would be trapped inside the main building with no escape route and 43 hostile security personnel converging on her position. She had perhaps 5 minutes to complete her mission before being overwhelmed by superior numbers. Avery made a decision that would define the rest of the mission. Instead of trying to escape, she would complete both objectives simultaneously. She kicked open the door to Petrov's command center, her HK-416 raised and ready. Petrov spun around, reaching for a weapon, but Avery was faster. 3 rounds, center mass, and the most dangerous arms dealer in the world was eliminated. But the video conference was still active, and the contacts on the other end had witnessed Petrov's death. Avery found herself looking at computer screens showing terrorist leaders in multiple locations who were now fully aware that their weapons supplier had been eliminated by American Special Operations. She had perhaps 2 minutes before the security force reached her location, and completing the mission now required destroying not just the weapons cache, but also all records of Petrov's network. Avery began systematically destroying computer equipment, files, and communication systems while guards pounded up the stairs toward her position. Her radio crackled. 7-7 Alpha, this is Overwatch. You've got multiple hostiles converging on your position. What's your status? Secondary objective complete, proceeding to facility destruction, then fighting my way out. 7-7 Alpha, that's 40-plus hostiles. Even for a SEAL, those aren't good odds. Avery smiled grimly as she activated the explosive charges she'd placed in the underground weapons facility. Chief, I've never been just a SEAL. The explosions that destroyed Petrov's weapons cache shook the entire compound, creating confusion and providing Avery with the distraction she needed. But now, she had to fight her way through a building full of armed guards to reach extraction. The first group of security personnel reached Petrov's command center just as Avery finished destroying his operational records. She engaged them with her HK-416, using full automatic fire and tactical movement to maintain the initiative. The customized assault rifle performed flawlessly, accurate, reliable, with minimal recoil that allowed her to maintain precise fire even during rapid movement. 5 guards down in the initial engagement, then Avery was moving through the building, using her knowledge of its layout and superior training to outmaneuver opponents who had numerical advantage but inferior tactical skills. The sound-suppressed HK-416 gave her a significant advantage in the confined space of the building's corridors. She could eliminate targets without alerting other guards to her exact position. But ammunition was limited, and there were still 38 hostile personnel in the compound. Avery fought her way down to the second floor, then the first floor, engaging guards in running firefights that tested every aspect of her combat training. Her radio crackled. 7-7 Alpha, this is Overwatch. We've got vehicles approaching your extraction point. How long do you need? Give me 8 minutes to reach the perimeter, then light up anything that moves. Avery reached the building's first floor with her ammunition running low and security guards closing in from multiple directions. Getting to the compound's perimeter wall would require crossing open ground under fire from multiple positions. She activated her final contingency, smoke grenades that created visual concealment while she sprinted across the courtyard toward the perimeter wall. Guards opened fire from windows in defensive positions, but the smokescreen disrupted their accuracy enough for Avery to reach cover. At the perimeter wall, she used her climbing equipment to scale the 12-foot barrier while guards converged on her position. As she dropped down on the other side of the wall, automatic weapons fire erupted from the SEAL team's Overwatch position. Chief Kane and his team engaged the compound security force with precision rifle fire, suppressing their pursuit and allowing Avery to reach the extraction point. 7-7 Alpha, this is Overwatch. You're clear for extraction. Outstanding work. Avery collapsed against a tree, breathing hard, her customized HK-416 empty, but her mission complete. Viktor Petrov was dead. His weapons cache was destroyed. His operational network was compromised. The surface-to-air missiles would never reach terrorist hands. Overwatch 7-7 Alpha, mission complete, all objectives achieved. Chief Kane appeared through the trees, grinning despite the chaos they'd just survived. Rogers, I don't know what your real story is, but that was some of the most professional special operations work I've ever seen. Avery stood up, shouldering her empty rifle. Chief, sometimes the best way to hide a SEAL is to make everyone think she's something else. Kane nodded slowly. Makes sense. Rogers, what happens now? Avery thought about 5 years of administrative work, 5 years of waiting for the mission that would justify her training, 5 years of being hidden in plain sight. Now I go back to being a logistics coordinator, at least until the next mission that requires someone who doesn't officially exist. 3 weeks later, Avery Rogers was back at her desk in the logistics office at Naval Special Warfare Command, processing equipment requests and scheduling meetings as if she'd never left. But the mission had changed something fundamental about how the Navy viewed covert operations. Word of her success had spread through the highest levels of military leadership, and new protocols were being developed for utilizing deep cover operatives in situations where conventional special operations were insufficient. Commander Hayes visited her office with a new folder marked with classification levels that required presidential authorization. But this time, she wasn't alone. Admiral Catherine Morrison, commander of Naval Special Warfare Command, accompanied her. Rogers, Admiral Morrison began, your performance on the Petrov mission has prompted a reassessment of how we conduct the most sensitive operations. What you accomplished, single operative infiltration, target elimination, and facility destruction against overwhelming odds, represents a capability we need to develop systematically. Hayes placed the folder on Avery's desk. We're establishing a new program, Deep Cover Operations, or DCO, highly classified operatives embedded in conventional positions, ready for deployment when missions require capabilities that don't officially exist. Admiral Morrison continued, Rogers, we want you to head this program. You'll recruit and train operatives who can function in deep cover for extended periods, then execute high-stakes missions with minimal support when national security demands it. Avery looked at the folder, then at the 2 senior officers who were offering her the chance to revolutionize special operations. Ma'am, what would this involve? You'd maintain your logistics coordinator cover, but you'd also be developing and managing a network of ghost operatives, SEALs, intelligence specialists, technical experts, all embedded in conventional positions, all prepared for missions like the one you just completed. Hayes leaned forward. Avery, what you proved with the Petrov mission is that sometimes the most dangerous operative is the one nobody knows exists. We want to expand that concept, create a capability that gives us options when conventional approaches fail. Admiral Morrison added, this would be a long-term assignment, Rogers. Years of building networks, developing capabilities, preparing for missions that may never come. But when they do come, you'd be responsible for operations that could prevent wars, eliminate threats, and protect American interests in ways that can never be officially acknowledged. Avery thought about the satisfaction of completing an impossible mission, about the knowledge that her actions had prevented weapons of mass destruction, destruction from reaching terrorist networks, about the potential to prevent similar threats in the future. Ma'am, I accept the assignment. Admiral Morrison smiled. Outstanding. Rogers, you're now the founding director of Deep Cover Operations, with authority to recruit personnel, develop protocols, and execute missions at presidential authorization levels. Hayes handed her a secure communication device. Your first recruit is already identified. There's a CIA operative in Eastern Europe who's been providing intelligence on arms trafficking networks. Her cover was compromised during the Petrov operation, and she needs extraction and reassignment. What's her background? Former Army Special Forces intelligence specialist, 5 years of deep cover in hostile territory. She's exactly the kind of operative this program needs. Avery activated the secure device and found a message from an agent codenamed Nightingale, requesting emergency extraction and expressing interest in alternative assignment opportunities. "Ma'am, when do I make contact?" Hayes checked her watch. 18 hours. It seems there's a terrorist cell in Southeast Asia that's attempting to reconstitute Petrov's network, and they've acquired some of his former contacts. We need someone to infiltrate their organization and eliminate the threat before they can establish operations. Admiral Morrison stood up. "Rogers, the Deep Cover Operations Program is now active. You have unlimited resources, presidential authorization, and the mandate to prevent threats that conventional military action cannot address." Avery looked at the secure communication device, at the folder containing her new mission parameters, at the opportunity to build something entirely new in the world of special operations. "Ma'am, I'll be ready." Admiral Morrison paused at the door. "Rogers, one more thing. This conversation never happened. Officially, you're still a logistics coordinator. Unofficially, you're now running the most classified program in the Department of Defense." After they left, Avery sat alone in her office, processing the magnitude of what she'd been asked to do. She would continue appearing to be an administrative coordinator while actually recruiting and managing a network of ghost operatives capable of missions that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in special operations. Her success against Viktor Petrov had been just the beginning. Now she would be responsible for creating a new type of military capability, operatives so deeply hidden that they could access targets, eliminate threats, and complete missions that were impossible for conventional special operations forces. The logistics coordinator who processed paperwork and scheduled meetings would remain visible to her colleagues. But the director of deep cover operations would be building something that had never existed before. A network of warriors who specialized in being invisible until the moment when impossible missions required their unique capabilities. Avery opened the secure communication device and began drafting her response to Nightingale. In 18 hours, she would be deploying her first recruit on a mission that would test whether the DCO concept could be replicated successfully. Because sometimes the most dangerous weapon in any arsenal isn't the biggest or the most expensive. Sometimes it's the network of operatives nobody knows exists, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the missions that require perfect invisibility, followed by flawless execution. Avery Rogers had spent 5 years being hidden as a single operative. Now she would spend the rest of her career building an entire organization of ghosts who specialized in missions that officially never happened. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this one.